to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And I am here with somebody I respect so much, a true entrepreneur in the magic field, and somebody who everybody knows. It is the one and only, the founder of Marvin's Magic, Marvin Berglas. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, Craig. Great to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. I know how much that you've got going on, so that you found some time to come on the channel. I really appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure.
And I have to say, I've interviewed a lot of magicians, and nobody at this point holds a candle to you in terms of the look of your set. It's fantastic. It really is.
Well, actually, we're here in the Marvin's Magic studio, and what's really great is it's been one of the good things about this horrible pandemic, which has obviously decimated hospitality and stuff. But we would literally be touring the world now, doing all of our face-to-face meetings firstly in Hong Kong as it starts, then in London where we have a big exhibition stand, and then we go to Germany, to Nuremberg, and then to New York. And it's a sort of a trailer. We go all around the world and then on to Australia even. And you have meetings with all your customers, and it's a historical thing. And clearly with no travel, we had to find a different way of doing it. And this has been a fantastic solution because we've done Zoom meetings, presentations, and shows, and had really great meetings. And we've got good setup here with all sorts of cameras and things, and it's helped tremendously. Just literally before we came on, we've been to China, Sweden, America, and had all sorts of things going on. So yeah, it's a part of the future, I think.
It really is. And I know you've been streaming a lot of shows on Facebook. Myself and Ryland have been watching them, and they've been fantastic. Michael J. Fitch, obviously, I spoke to him recently on the channel, and I know you've had him a part of a few of these as well. And the two of you together, you work so well.
Oh, thank you. That was the Marvin's Magic Live that we did, which was something we did before Christmas, which went out. It was an idea we'd spoken about, and it was a way of keeping in touch with our fan base and our customers. And we thought it would be a good time to sort of meet up with a lot of the celebrity ex demonstrators and team, and show how we come up making products. And it was a very nice thing, and we gave away a lot of products at the same time. So it was very well viewed, and continues to be watched by a lot of people. And I'd recommend, if you haven't seen it and you're into our stuff, it's a good way of looking back. It's good.
Oh, it really is. Now, I want to talk to you about how you went from childhood to becoming,
An adult.
Well, exactly. Yeah, basically.
You've got to eat regularly, sleep, and eventually, after a few years, you get to adulthood. It's amazing. Is that the question you meant? Sorry.
Not quite,
okay,
but close.
But
I mean, yeah, Marvin's Magic is such a huge company. And when I said at the beginning, you're a true entrepreneur, you really are. A lot of magicians are just happy to, go and have a gig. But I mean, what you've built up is this huge worldwide company that's massive. And so many magicians have got their start as a demonstrator in Marvin's Magic. You speak to so many such respected professional magicians, and it's like, yeah, I wouldn't be where if I was if it wasn't for Marvin's Magic. So the impact that you're having on the magic community and the amount of people that are in magic because of you and what you've built is huge, really.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to remind ourselves of that, and we don't take it for granted. It's something we're very, very proud of, and it's probably a great legacy, because you mentioned all the magicians that have perhaps helped us as demonstrators, being frontline ambassadors, but and many of them have gone on to become very well-known magicians in both the UK and the US in particular, and many of them have gone on to become professionals, and even at the very top of their game, and not just in magic, but in acting and all sorts of, it's a who's who, really. But for every one of those, we've got 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 more who are just magicians. We've encouraged the next generation of magicians, and there's literally millions of those. We're approaching our 35th year in business, and the last few years in particular has been really dynamic and strong in lots of different ways. I know we talk about the golden period of some of the in magic, the well-known magicians that have graced us in the early days. The likes of Mark Paul was our first manager. Andy Nyman, of course, worked with us. The late great Anthony Owen, Lee Thompson, and Nick Einhorn, and there's so many. In fact, I hate doing that because it sounds like we're just talking about a handful, but there's been literally many that we all know who thankfully we remain great friends with, and have said, you know, what an important part of their career doing this frontline demonstrating and help them to all their performance and people skills. And what they're doing now is what they call big boys Marvin's Magic. In other words, doing a trade show or a show. Same sort of thing applies. You've got to be able to have a start, a middle, and a finish, and make your point across in a very short space of time.
Absolutely. And I want to talk more about the frontline demonstrators. I want to talk more about Marvin's Magic, but can we start at the very beginning? Because obviously you were born into a family of magic. I mean, you're for anybody who doesn't know, and I can't understand why anybody wouldn't, but obviously you're the son of David Berglas. I mean, that's huge, you know, one of the greatest magicians of all time. How, you know, that must have been an interesting childhood.
Well, of course, looking back, it absolutely was. And what you probably don't realize at the time is that you are privileged to be in that position of someone who's so respected and legendary in the world of magic. But of course, when you're a child, you know, you don't really know much different. I mean, you know, I wouldn't say that we, you know, well, whilst I had a wonderful childhood, of course, so we met lots of interesting people, and that seemed to be the norm and stuff. But we were still, you know, my brother who was a year older than me. You know, we were just kids knocking around like all other kids, playing football up trees, and as we got older, chasing girls, the usual sort of stuff that you do, and getting into scrapes and stuff. But Dad was away a lot actually while we were young. You know, he used to do shows and cruises and tour around. So magic wasn't really, it was something we're aware of, and wasn't that we were passionate about it really early on in our lives. And obviously I look back and there's many things where I was able to be privileged to sort of go with him to see a show, or, you know, that he was doing, or a summer season. I remember it distinctly, he did in Brighton. It was quite interesting. And seeing your dad when you were 8, 9, 10 years old on stage, you know, you get different, you get nervous because your dad's your dad. He's not this great performer and stuff, you know. He just, so you know, it's actually uncomfortable watching it, but he was always good. He delivered, as you know, and he was good. And then when we went to school in the UK, he mainly came off the air in the UK to try and give us some sort of normality of a childhood. And he was in Holland in particular, where he was he had his TV series there, which was a big success, and called Opus 13. And I think he was the first guy from overseas to win the TV Personality of the Year over there. So when we went to see that being filmed when we were 9, 10, 8, 11, you know, and people pointing, and the guys knowing him, and wherever we went, and, you know, at the even from when you land in the, you know, at the immigration, the guys knew him, and it was a big sensation, and it was very interesting, different for us to see. We hadn't really seen that side of things before. That was good, of course.
That's amazing.
And I always tell the story, which to me is still a great story, is, you know, we when he was getting ready to do his shows and stuff, it was all hands to the deck. You know, we had to try and help out. He was obviously a nervous tension when you do a show, and he was the kingpin, and we had to make sure that we helped load his car up correctly and wave him off. And it was like, as he was going to the distance, you know, with my mom and the family, was like, whew, and we could relax a bit. It was that type of thing. And once I was asking, where's your show today? What are you doing? And he was actually opening for the Rolling Stones. Can you imagine that? You know, as a kid, to open for the Rolling Stones. They'd had bands who were booed off because they wanted something different. And I think it was Mick Jagger who saw him on the Dave Allen show when he was doing the TV show, doing his floating table, thought we should have that. So they got Dad to open for the Rolling Stones, courtesy of Mick Jagger. And that was quite something. It's not often you can say your dad opens for the Rolling Stones.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So obviously you're surrounded by magic from the second you were born. Was there a moment that you can remember where you kind of thought to yourself, you know what, I'd like to go into the family business in some way, shape or form. I'd like to see myself doing this, or some.
Yeah, I think there was to me, the time it really worked was 1976. I was in school, just probably about to do some GCSEs, something like that. And my dad was going to Lyon to a magic convention there, a very nicely organized convention. And the guy he was going with fell ill, and he just launched his book, one of his books, which was the DB file, and he had a sort of special pack of cards that could do some very nice flourishes and things like that, a mixture of like an electric deck type of thing, but it was called Concertina. It was a really clever thing where you could do fans, flourishes, all that sort of thing. And he was selling his book, and so I got a call from school to see if I could be a last minute substitute for this guy to go with him to France. So I can't remember if it was history or geography, quite a boring thing. And they said, excuse me, Mother, would you come outside? And then I got a call from my dad or my mum that I had to go home, and basically flew out that evening with him, had my little suit and not much else. And I really enjoyed that convention because I got bitten by the bug, because Dad showed me how this thing worked, and I was really sort of quite proficient on it and showing off a bit. And we had this sort of table dealer stand thing, which was right in the back somewhere with all the other booksellers. And I said, no, that's not going to work. Let's go here. And I said to the organizers, this is my cheeky entrepreneurial spirit must have been happening even in those days. I seemed to get it organized that we were right in the prime spot. And obviously when Dad was there, he got a lot of interest in people signing his stuff. And then he went and did a lecture. And before he came back, he noticed there was a huge crowd of people around there. And he finally got himself to the front, and he saw me. I was doing all these flourishes and stuff. And I got bitten by the bug, because I thought, well, this is powerful, this magic stuff, how you can get people to like you and to do all sorts of things. And it was showing off in a fun way. And so that was probably the first time I really got bitten by the bug, yeah. And from then onwards, obviously, I learned a lot of my own sleight of hand. And actually, I found that magic for me, even before and during running Marvin's Magic, has been great, because it's taken me around the world, and I've met all of my heroes, and I've been, for example, I love football, as a lot of people would know, and I was a big Arsenal fan, and it meant that I became the first Premier League magician and doing match day magic, and it was my idea. Brought it to the club, and when hospitality was first started, and that was back in '93, and I literally ran for 20-30 years doing the magic there, and all the spin-offs for it. So I was doing literally 3 or 4 shows a week because of the spin-offs with it for 30 years on top of running the business. So it was a great grounding for learning and just meeting so many people, and I loved it to bits. It's really been good.
That's amazing. So did you go straight into performing from finishing school? I mean, was there a period of time where you kind of did something else or had a quote unquote proper job, or did you go straight into sort of a performing lifestyle pre Marvin's Magic, of course?
Never had a proper job. I did a milk round. I pushed trolleys in a supermarket for a week or two, all those type of things. But what actually I did do, I was mentioning about the interest in sport. I used to collect programs and that type of thing. And I used to go to these sort of trade fair type of, not trade fairs, more sort of programming fairs where guys would buy, sell and swap stuff. And they were so badly organized and cramped and everything. I thought, oh, I'm sure I could do something a bit better. So I was, as I said, always liked organizing, quite entrepreneurial. So aged 17, 18, 6 weeks after leaving school, I actually organized this thing. I hired Lord's Cricket Ground, believe it or not. And I organized something called the Collectors Convention. And it was where, instead of just being programs, I also got people interested in stamps, coins, cigarette cards, postcards, ephemera, anything that was meant to be thrown away and not kept. I got dealers of maybe 50 or 60 dealers where I sold some space where they would be around there. I got a lot of people who were into collecting to have special exhibits. Like there's a guy who used to collect newspapers with really important headlines like Nelson dead or Titanic sinks or first man on the moon, put a whole big thing. And another guy had Jeff Hurst England shirt and all sorts of things like that. And then I got Sotheby's and Phillips, the auctioneers, there to give free advice. And I got into about 50 or 60 publications, including all the national newspapers, to say, just tell them what was going on, how, you know, for people who like collecting. And it got a lot of, it taught me about publicity, it taught me about promotion and stuff. And, you know, looking back, it was on a relatively small scale, but it taught me a heck of a lot, press releases and enthusiasm. I went on 2 or 3 TV programs like Nationwide doing interviews about it, Blue Peter and Magpie and all those things that were on at the day. I remember the Daily Mail did a big story on page 3. Marvin sets out to collect $1 million. And then, you know, and the Evening Standard full page features. And so I did a lot of stuff, which I didn't realize, probably looking back, how amazing that publicity was and how, but, you know, but it taught me a lot. And there was 1,000 people around the block before we opened. And I did this for 2 or 3 years. And the 3rd year got sponsored by the Sunday Mirror and did a big one called the National Collectors Exhibition. And that was in Kensington this time. But that was my first real telltale sign of things not going to plan, because there was me going on TV saying, come to Kensington, you know, to this National Collector Exhibition, it's going to be great. And it coincided with the Iranian siege at the Iranian embassy, where there was the bombings. And there was the police saying, whatever you do, keep out of the West End. And so I had this real dichotomy and thing of how to deal with that. Never count your chickens before they're hatched, it taught me, which was a good lesson in life generally. We overcame that, you know, but it's that horrible feeling of, you know, putting your reputation, your line on something you organized and then something being out of your control. And I think that's really put me in good stead for business generally. And actually, coming back to Marvin's Magic, I mean, I started Marvin's Magic in 1987. So now we're talking a few years before there. And I did a couple of things. I did, I mean, the performance stuff was minor by comparison in those days. But I worked, I think, for an import company where I was a warehouse manager stroke personal assistant to the managing director of this company. It sounded all very good. And it came with a company car, which was a Ford Capri. And in those days, for an 18-year-old boy to get a Ford Capri, I would have done anything. So that was where I got the job. But basically, I was a glorified warehouse guy. And it taught me about distribution. And whatever I did, I tried to do to the best of my ability. I learned about distribution, logistics, which helped me in life. I then loved, you know, in my A-levels and stuff, I was always good at design. And that's the one thing that I really enjoyed. And so with a school friend, we found a business where they had some beautiful art materials and that type of thing, and had the rights for those. It was from a German company, and basically flogged them wherever we could. And one of the things was in Hamleys, went there showing this, as people know, the old magic drawing board, a way to draw in bright colors with no mess. It was an old product by then, but I was the guy right by the front door. And they said, oh yeah, I remember that, give it a go. And so the next Monday I was in there demonstrating on a cold February, and we haven't looked back, we're still there all the way through. And we've sold literally millions of them during that time. But it all started through enthusiasm, the same efforts that our guys put into the passion of showing, keeping a crowd, drawing a crowd, and then applause being them buying it because they believe in what you're saying. All those things apply, and that really was something that, you know, really have done it throughout my business career, you know, to bring something to life, in-store entertainment, or as you could say ESP, Dad's words were entertaining sales presentations, you know, but just, yeah, that was it really. So I've done many things. We've also run 2 or 3 other companies prior to Marvin's Magic and simultaneously with Marvin's Magic, multi-million-pound businesses. One was, we had a schools business where we had 70 salespeople going, demonstrating into primary schools up and down the country. And so, yeah, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur and a magician.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You've always obviously had this entrepreneurial spirit, and that's just obvious to see. Did obviously Marvin's Magic has become a global phenomenon. It's huge. But when Marvin's Magic first launched, there was nothing like it. Um, Obviously, you had magic that was sold in magic shops for magicians, and you might have the odd magic box set, and that's it. But you created an industry out of nothing. I mean, was that your intention when did you have the idea for Marvin's Magic, and was the goal to make it as big as it is now, or was the goal to create an entire industry out of nowhere? What was the thought process that went through your mind at that point?
You know, it sounds presumptuous to say, you know, would I have imagined it would be as big as it is now? Probably, yeah. I think if you always do the best you can, people want to be involved in success and things. And I think one opportunity and reliability and hard work and passion, one thing leads to another, and people want to be associated with that. So, as I said, I got the rights for this product, was demonstrating the drawing board, and became the top salesperson in Hamleys at the time, and enjoyed that before we went into 70 other stores where we had other demonstrators doing it. But at the time, that taught me something. And when Hamleys, who were very famous for magic, of course, many, many years ago, Hamleys brothers, we had a huge magic department. It was thriving. But in those days, where we're talking about in the 80s, it was between the time of where they had not done very well and bought some stuff from the Far East, which was poor instructions, difficult, hadn't been done. So again, they said, you know, Marvin, you're a good sales guy and you must know about magic. What do you think? You know, and rather than just say, okay, it's like the light bulb moment came as another idea. Well, hold on a second. You know, I'd earned the opportunity to say to them, give me a few months to come back to you on this concept. And I came back with the concept of it. We launched in Marvin's Magic in 6 stores of Hamleys, in Bath, where Bruce Smith was at the time, and in Hamleys, where I recruited, I think, Rob Bromley, who was the opening act for Freddie Starr, believe it or not, who was a great inventor and stuff at the time. Cheeky chappy, hard to keep under wraps, but a lot of respect for Rob because he was the first demonstrator there. And, you know, all the other guys in Newcastle, Swansea, Croydon, wherever else, Romford. And we opened it with a bit of panache, and it went well. And I could see it had legs, because as soon as it went there, then Harrods came aboard, they wanted to do it. And then, you know, and one thing leads to another. If you're reliable and you're good and you do what you say and you exceed expectations. I was always passionate to make the product as best we can. I used to love, and I still do love, enjoying making unusual and great products and being in charge of that side of things. I think, you know, that's how life works, really, isn't it?
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to say to you. I think that one of the things that makes Marvin's Magic stand out, even, I mean, obviously now there are other box sets that come out, but yours are always above and beyond anything else out there. And one of the reasons is the selection of tricks and routines that you put in there. I still have my executive set that I got so many years ago, with the dynamic coins and the pencil through, and everything was just beautifully presented. And it wasn't like cheap tat. It was so well. It's the sort of thing that you could actually take to a gig if you wanted to. Like was that a conscious decision that you wanted the quality to be top notch?
Yeah, I think 100%, because when I think back, there's a lot of similarities to what we did in the very early years where we launched the product to what we've done in the last 6 or 7 years. And there was, okay, the company's trajectory went high. We went into 60 odd countries around the world. But there was a time where I thought we lost our way a little bit. And that to me was because as you grow, there's 3 sides to our business now, you know. We grew up on was very much the demonstration business, where you show it, off, and people have bought on impulse very often, and the presentation was key to that. And so I always wanted to make it look good. And I think with my art background and my design background and the quality background, we sourced products from all over the place, put them together. Obviously with my knowledge of magic as well, is we're not just a toy company who would just buy something with cheap instructions from the Far East. You know, we would really go through it and put it all together well. And I think that's really was a breath of fresh air at the time compared to other stuff out there, because other stuff out there tended to be from just a toy company who just happened to have a few bits and pieces. And obviously we're not the first people to do magic sets, but we had some very innovative magic sets, many which have gone on to win major awards, and we're very proud of that and still do. In fact, we literally now are coming up with some fantastic stuff I'm really proud about. You know, a lot of it nowadays has to be sustainable. Don't use single-use plastics. The box is very often integral to the design of the product and part of it. And so, you know, we want stuff that people are proud of. And now we have a lot of things with an app which has augmented reality. So we're combining traditional methods with new technology. We're also able to do things like show, for example, on our, I should show you really, but we've got it on our app. You would take the instructions, you'd go to the back of the instruction booklet, download the QR code, and it would go straight to a whole now selection of videos that show you step by step what to do, which you can pause, rewind, even look at them in different languages. And it makes learning so much easier and fun for the kids of different age ranges. So we're really proud and getting, even though we're talking about our glory days back in those days with some of the who's who of magic that worked with us, actually what we've been doing the last few years has really set the bar differently. And I'm saying we're going back to those years because maybe 10 years ago, we were dictated to by the marketplace. Whilst demonstration was our main business, we then went into sort of the supermarkets, and nowadays you'd find our products in Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Asda, Argos. You probably saw the Argos Christmas campaign. They featured the Marvin's Magic product with the girls doing the magic, which was great for us, of course, and all those type of things. But sometimes they tend to want, the buyer would dictate, I don't care what's in the box, just going to be £10 and this, that, the other. Well, nowadays we really do care what's in the box, and we really want to make it, we want to exceed the customer's expectations, encourage the magicians of tomorrow. And so we've really gone back to our roots, and we know that magic encourages social skills and builds confidence, and it inspires imagination, and it develops communication, all the great things that magic, if we get more and more people into magic, it's only good for our profession, and we're starting off for a lot of people. It helps the interest generally. So very proud of it. So we've now got demonstration, we've got the trade business, as you say, which goes into all the stores, and we've of course got the online business, which we're doing a lot of through the likes of Amazon and people like that at the moment.
That's fantastic. And that's one thing that I'm seeing. You're constantly innovating. You're not resting on your laurels and going, well, this is working, so let's just keep it like that. The perfect example is the Rubik's Cube set that came out recently. I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was very nice of them to approach us to do that. And it was their 40th anniversary. And I really enjoyed working with a small select team to come up with some ideas, and full credit to some friends of mine in magic, who contributed some of those ideas. I know Mike Fitch was in on that, and Andy Clockwise came up with a great idea, for example, which was everyone knows that cascading dice trick or dice bomb, I think it was called, where you put a cube inside a canister and shake it. Well, by making it into a mixed-up cube into a solved cube instantly, you've broken the world record, which was about 4.3 seconds. You can do it in 1 second. So magically, it was great, and that was the perfect trick. So it was great to involve those things. We've got a version where they change into small dice and all sorts of different things going on there. It won an award, and they were very pleased with it. And what was great was this time last year, we went to Germany, and we met up with Rubik himself, the inventor, and he was very excited. I was able to demonstrate and some magic, get some smiles off him, and we had a lot of fun. So those are the type of you know, fun things that come out of it, that you earn those opportunities, you know.
Yeah, I mean the presentation of it was amazing as well. Like the box looking like a giant Rubik's cube was.
Yeah.
My son just lost it when he had that
Oh,
set. I mean, he just
oh, that's
couldn't.
great.
It's yeah,
That's
it's
good to hear. Nice to hear. And that's something I still feel passionate about, and that was my yeah. I think I still have got a good feel about what could make something a little bit special. I work very closely with people and designers, and a lot of loyalty that we have. You know, in our business, we've got people who've been with us for 30 years, some 20 years, and many for 10 years. But they're a very dynamic, loyal team we've got here, and a young team actually. And I love empowering people and inspiring them to help them learn, develop, so they can make the right decisions themselves. And that's how we build our business up. And I'm the CEO now, and I've got a great young MD and financial director and creative director, and we get on with it. And you know, we all got our strengths, but I think it's really important to have the ability to empower people and let them get on with things, but add, you know, if I can bring something to it which makes it more special. And that was actually my idea, to make it the big box. You know, I love things like that, you know.
Well, do you mentioned Andy Clockwise and you mentioned Michael J. Fitch. When you're creating a new set, for example, do you reach out to the magic community and speak to successful creators? What's the process towards creating a new Marvin's Magic set? Because every time you bring something out, there's something completely. My son has got all of them, everything. So, and they're always. It would be very easy to do the same thing over and over again and just change the theming on it slightly.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
you don't do that. Everything is innovated to the nth degree.
Yeah, I mean, there's ironically there are certain evergreen type of things. You know, like we one thing that we did try and do, because magic tended when I first started to be aged for about 8-year-olds, and it was mainly boys. Now we have stuff which is certainly for boys or girls, and there's more and more girls into it, which is great. And we've now tried to get the. I was noticing when I started that some of the magic sets, you know, they might say 200 tricks or 100 tricks for a price point, but quite frankly, those tricks were not appropriate for that age range. The hands couldn't do thimbles and balls and multiplying balls. It was impossible for a skilled magician to be able to do that, let alone a child. So we worked really hard to try and find age appropriate instructions and props that are suitable for that age range. I tried to bring down the age range so we could start at 4, 5, 6 years old, which we called Magic Made Easy. And then we introduced another category, because at 8 years old, you want to be a bit more cool, edgy, and trendy. So we had our mind-blowing magic, and it segues through. We've now got a beautiful signature range, and it goes right the way through and to executive magic, as you first said. And, you know, so even sets like this one here, you know, it's like a limited edition set. It looks really nice, and you'd be proud to have that. So there's different age ranges that we've tried to do. And in terms of the magicians that we've reached out to, actually, most of the in-house creativity is done here. There's 3 or 4 of us in particular that I work very closely with. I tend to head that side of things. I work closely with Justin Monaghan, who been with us since he was a 17-year-old lad, you know. In fact, he was probably a competitor in the Young Magician of the Year in the window once we put him in Hamleys. But he's a good designer. We work very closely. We're very much on the same wavelength, and I enjoy working with Justin. But I think, you know, he's got his skills and I've got mine, and I think we complement each other. I think it's very important for designers to understand interpretation of brief. You know, that's really key, because I could go to an agency or something and say, I would like this, and they'd come back hearing what I've said, and their interpretation is different. But we have a personality of how we want things to look and feel. The only magicians in the past that we've worked with, I'm trying to think back in our history. I did something when we were doing a lot of products back in the day with QVC in America. I was doing a lot of TV shopping in America, very, you know, 125 hours of live TV over there, which was really big. I did something with Michael Amar, who was, I thought, a great teacher, and we did, when he was doing the videos and stuff, we did something together. Then I also did something with Dave Williamson, where we did a version of his raccoon, which we called the Wackaroon, which we had a passport and it was in a little cage, and we had great fun launching that for a while. But probably it's if we're looking for niche products, I mean, another great one was Kevin James, fantastic magician from Vegas, and Kevin worked very closely with us with his living hand, and we put that together with our freaky body illusions, and took it to the next level with a whole variety of different body type illusions, which were freaky, and that was great. But generally we tend to work in-house, and then obviously we have the ability to speak to, you know, with a lot of friends in magic. If I need some advice or bring someone in or whatever, we could do that, and we would do that often. I remember in the very early days with one of our magic shop, which was a very early product we had, sitting around the table with me in our old offices was Ali Bongo, my dad, Mark Paul, Anthony Owen, and myself and Justin, and that was a really great thing, you know. So we come up with some, you know, amazing things going on like that.
That's fantastic. And you said at the beginning of the interview that in the early days of Marvin's Magic, you were performing all of the time, and you were also running the company, which must have been incredibly difficult. I'm guessing that you don't really have time to perform professionally anymore. I mean, your time is so valuable doing other stuff.
Do you know what? It's actually different for that, Craig. I mean, obviously now it's a little bit different, as much as, you know, we're not able to go out and do as many gigs as we were. But actually I do. I mean, in my heyday, I was doing probably about 150 live gigs a year, which I really enjoyed, and I think keeps you fresh and keeps you grounded. You're only as good as your last show and all that sort of thing. And I think I learned a lot of the disciplines that were required. And it's not something that the magic community necessarily knew much about, that I was doing that, but I was doing it at quite high levels. You know, the type of places and hospitality I was working with tended to be really top end, and, you know, every gig leads to another, and I was meeting some very interesting people and doing a lot of, what was nice is that I was doing a lot of regular stuff year after year. I was asked back, so you're only as good as your last gig, but if they like you and they want you, you know, to come back. And I was doing that year after year with many people. So yeah, I still do it. The stakes are, let's say today, you know, as I said, we incorporate magic in our presentations, and I've been doing, so whereas instead of, let's say, maybe just doing a wedding or a corporate or something, the stakes are bigger now. If I'm doing something, it's often to promote the brand, and therefore we would do magic in there which they're not expecting. And, you know, that's really powerful, because it's, you know, the payoff is much bigger if we get it right, and we often do. So it's good fun. So I'm constantly performing magic. I still go out there, and I don't, you know, I'm if I'm asked to do it and I'm available, I'll happily do it, because I think the timing is essential to learn that, you know, the skills. And I'm fascinated by people's reactions and audience management and presentation, just generally. I mean, you know, one thing growing up in the Berglas household with someone like Dad, who's absolutely a creative thinker, totally unique, you know, his skill set is not easy to replicate. And I chose not to be a clone of him. I chose to do my own thing, and hopefully I'm as successful in what I do as he was in his thing, but a different way. But I do know the difference between good and bad, and I think you can learn just as much from watching performers, good and bad. And I've tried very hard to always learn, and I'm still learning. And I just remember when I was, you know, working in the corporate sector, especially at someone like Arsenal, you know, and they wouldn't necessarily know me as Marvin's Magic in this. I was just the magician or this or that, or Marvin or whatever. And, you know, I've done Premier League footballers who are a tough gig, a tough audience, or the Barbarians rugby team I do every year, you know. And these guys are, you know, they're sort of, you better be great, otherwise we are going to slaughter you type of guy, you know, and there's no holding back. You've got to be good. And I used to really enjoy the dynamic of working that out, who was the sort of, who was the leader of the pack, where to, you know, people are looking at someone else to see his reaction before they know how to react, and choosing the right person. I find that the most fascinating thing. And I think a lot of people overlook that sometimes, you know, how you're seen, how you're heard, how you put the presentation across in magic.
Fantastic. Now, let me ask you a slightly different question. Um, do you have, I mean, obviously you're a very successful businessman. I mean, you've built up, as I've said, a global empire in an industry that didn't even exist. For any magicians that are watching this, that are maybe new into magic, that are wanting to make a career out of being a magician, as someone who has performed professionally for many years and somebody who has been successful in business for many years, is there any tips that you can share on how to actually be a successful magician and create a personal brand that people want to buy into?
I think you made a good point there. I think, create a personal brand, I think is the key there, because um, you can be, there's a lot of magicians out there, and unfortunately the fee basis isn't necessarily correlates to the ability. People who are good marketers on social media might be at the top of the list and they could get the gig, and they might just be a kid working at home out of his bedroom, has no real fixed cost compared to a family man with 3 or 4 kids who's got the mortgage to pay, and he's got a lifetime of skill set behind him. He might get the gig because it's a little bit cheaper than the other guy. And who's winning there? I don't know. So I think it would be great if getting one gig, as I say, is one thing, but to get the repeat gigs is the key. And I think the way you do that is not to look at the rewards of how much you're earning per gig or whatever. I think it's to look at slightly more long term. Is the satisfaction? Are you good at what you do? Do you know who you are? Don't just, what they say about being a magician. I mean, there's so many who are karaoke magicians. We know there's, you can go up to Blackpool and come back with carrier bags full of stuff of what looks like great tricks, and just do those and you can get paid for doing that. But that doesn't make you a magician. You haven't really done your apprenticeship properly. You haven't really, in certain other fields, you have to take various exams and studies and that type of thing. And I think to be a real expert at it and to have a point of difference is that you have to be true to your own personality and see how people perceive you, and how can you be different from someone else? How can you be your own personality to put that across in an interesting and fun way? And I think the success and rewards will come naturally if you have excitement, exactly what I was saying before: passion, enthusiasm, reliability, honesty. The humor and the timing comes from doing it many, many times. We've all been there. We've done, the same trick you can do blindfolded, but you might just hear that one heckle line or one comment or one thing that you happen to say at the right time, which gets the right reaction. And you think, oh, just by changing the nuance slightly or the timing of something, it makes a huge difference. And you learn to make that sound like it's the first time you've done it, the second, third, fourth time. And that makes it 1,000 times better. The same way in comedy and timing, or in sport, in technique, it's just repetition and being aware. And I think that gives you the tools you need to then have the confidence to market yourself with enthusiasm and with honesty. And I think you can set your fees because people would think you're good value, and it's how you market yourself on that. It shouldn't be just a race to the bottom. Everybody can win that, but that's not going to get you anywhere. I think you've got to have a self-belief and not sound desperate, which is difficult when you're trying to make a career and need to pay the bills. But if you have a self-worth, I think eventually people will believe in you and you'll have success.
And one other thing that people can learn from what you've done, Marvin, is you've embraced social media and embraced the online platform. When Marvin's Magic first started, like you say, it was a demonstration and it was all live, and it's a good job that you did, because obviously if you hadn't have done that because of COVID, it would have been a different situation. But you embraced social media. And I think that's something that magicians need to do as well. And watching what you've done, it's just, you know, a perfect example of how to do it right.
Well, thank you. We've by no means gone all the way, and there's a long way to go. I mean, just today, as we're learning all about how it's done in different markets. In China, for example, that they don't have Amazon in the same way, or they have different ways of doing it, and there's different compliance, and there's every local market has different nuances that you have to learn, and all that type of thing. But another bit of advice I would give to magicians maybe is if where you can have multiple income streams. Don't just always think just do this. If you can perhaps, maybe market a product, a trick in the magic fraternity, or, we actually get people writing to us or submitting videos of ideas they've got. And if it's the right thing, we would pay a royalty or a fee for a buyout. So I recommend if anybody has got anything that they think would work on our things, we're always open to look on that type of thing. And just the criteria for demonstration is different from what goes in a box, because the criteria for demonstration is that it's got to be something which is ideally with a gimmick. So it's a little bit, simple to use, but has something a little extra. It has a start, a middle, and a finish. And ideally can be done surrounded. And that would be the perfect product, and is easy to reset. That's the perfect product for demonstration. Not many products actually fulfill that criteria, but to give you an example, in our world, which products really work well, and that would be obviously the dynamic coins, of course, the lights from anywhere, or a Svengadi pack, they would be the ideal products for that, So to come up with something like that is obviously difficult, but that would be a win if someone could come up with that idea. And then other people come up with different ideas, which might just be something which we might put inside a set, and then different things. So that's an income stream. Obviously, for magicians, if they've got a reputation, then the magic market for magicians is a different market again, that people are prepared to spend a lot more money than they are in the retail sector for one individual trick that does something. And it tends to be that the life cycle of products is constant, that all the dealers out there are having to continually come up with something new and stuff. So if you've got something, there's people there, I'm sure, who would always be interested in it if it was something unique. And yeah, I think there's different things one can do. If you can try and combine magic with your hobby, then you can talk with enthusiasm and passion, or go into a specific market. Let's just say you were a golfer or whatever, then, maybe there's something you can do with the golf market or something, for example. There's always things around that you can look at and have an advantage. Just got to think, just don't wait for it to come to you. Just try and be positive and come up with lots of different things. Have 10 ideas, and if 3 or 4 of them work, you're doing well, and concentrate on the good ones.
Perfect. Brilliant advice. And if somebody's watching this, and, we've mentioned so many big names that have demonstrated for you over the years, if they're kind of thinking, well, you know what, I'd really like to be a demonstrator at Marvin's Magic, how do people get on your radar?
Well, we'd be delighted. We have had, some great names, as we've said, and, even the recipient of the recent British Magical Society Cup was Stephen Mulhern. And Stephen was a demonstrator with us when he was, he was probably 16, 17, 18. He looked about 12, but, what a great experience. People like that. We've had actors, Tom Hollander, who was a well-known British actor, Lloyd Owen, great actor. We've had really some fabulous entrepreneurial people who've gone into public speaking. We've had stunt workers and every allied art form you can imagine. But how would you do it? Well, we basically, we're very happy to consider someone if they're the right. I've got a team here, a guy called Tom Hudson, who funny enough used to be in Coronation Street himself. He's our MD, and he was a child actor who was in Grange Hill on Coronation Street. He would be the guy who's in charge of all that sort of things. And we have team leaders, and they'd come in for a coffee, and we'd have a chat with them, and we'd see if it's what you like. And let me tell you, there's no better experience for a young demonstrator or an old demonstrator to learn timing, audience management, because you can imagine the turnover of people coming through there and having to have that same enthusiasm at the beginning of there as you have at the end. It's hard going, but it's very rewarding and can be a great way of learning the business. And many people have proven that it has been this perfect experience for them for a couple of years. So we're always interested to hear from people. And it's not something you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, but for a period of your life, I guarantee it's not a waste of time by any means. The people who are best at it have always gone on to do something very successful in their own career.
I completely agree. I mean, the problem with a lot of magicians is they focus on the magic trick, but the ultimate thing is to, especially with close-up magic, is to walk over to a bunch of strangers and within seconds get them to a position where they want to watch you and listen to what you have to say. And there's no better way of learning how to do that than, you know, trying to stop people as they're walking past, and not only get them to listen to you, but get them to then part money and buy the thing that you're talking to them about.
That's exactly right. And in fact, you know, we've seen magicians who are a bag of nerves, you know, and not wanting to go to that first table, and you know, it's all that that awkwardness is a horrible thing, and you learn why. You know, it's the same in a social situation at a party. You know, some people are natural and it's no problem at all, and other people are a bit awkward. And I think one thing it does teach you is it shouldn't be a question of trying to stop people. It, to me, is very much I'm doing them a favor to show them something unbelievable. If you know, it's how you put that perception across, and you know, and it's not feeling desperate at all. It's on the contrary, I'm advising them of what is something that really would be great for them, that would make their life easier. You know, imagine a shopper in a store. You know, it's a hassle to get up to the West End. It's a hassle. You've got your kids pulling in different directions. You've got, you know, you've got so many distractions. And if someone was really helpful and could show you something which is great and all the conditions were right, it make your life easier. And, you know, that's really what you want to do. You want to be advising, encouraging, and saying it in an honest and open way. And so people are intelligent, you know, let them make their own mind up. But if you've given them all the conditions which are correct, I think you'll be successful. And it's the same with performing magic, exactly the same criteria.
Absolutely. One more question about this. That's kind of a bit of a different direction, but I think it could help a lot of people that are watching this interview. I've got a background in entrepreneurialism. I've got a degree in business entrepreneurialism. And one thing that I know from speaking to and studying lots of different entrepreneurs is it's never plain sailing. I mean, for every high, there's a huge low. And I don't know, obviously, Marvin's Magic well enough, but I'm guessing in order to get to the size that you are, you've had to deal with adversity along the way. Now, the reason I'm asking this is because I'm very in tune with the magic community, and at the moment, there's a lot of magicians struggling because they've been benched for the last year. You know, I've seen magicians that have literally walked away from the art and sold all of their props, and others are kind of teetering on the edge. They've really found the last year of unable to perform very, very difficult. As somebody who is a true entrepreneur, and I'm very positive, even though I haven't asked you, you've probably dealt with a lot of adversity to build the business up to where it is. Is there any advice that you can give magicians that are struggling right now, having dealt with a year of frustration because they've been unable to go out and do what they love?
Well, firstly, my heart goes out to everybody who is in that situation, and it's unfortunately not just magicians; it's many people. But obviously, the hospitality world has been decimated, and as magicians, just relying on those type of gigs, it has been very hard. And obviously, you know, having been in business 35 years, I can assure you that every adversity that you could think about has happened to us over those years. You know, we've had from tragedies to all sorts of things going on, all things that I couldn't begin to tell you, but everything you can imagine happening has happened. And to run a business, I don't think I've lost it. I don't feel I've lost any sleep recently, because I think I'm good at coping with that type of thing. But I always think you need to be having several steps and looking at the bigger picture. it's I don't mean to sound facetious in any way, because I recognize that for a lot of people that you know, it's been a really tough time. And my only sound advice is that I'm absolutely sure that as we come to the end of the pandemic and business comes back to normal, that there will be a bounce back, because I think people have missed the social interaction, missed parties, and there'll be a big celebrations, and I think they'll want to embrace this live entertainment. And whilst Zoom has been great on many, you know, factors, I think people are looking forward very much to doing that. So, and if you have a talent and a skill, I'm sure you will be back in demand very soon. But I do think you always have to be planning what if, and it's a sort of disaster recovery, I think, is the correct explanation, you know, that what happens if. And I think if you have 2 or 3 type of things going on in the background, that's why I talk about multiple income streams. If one thing wasn't working, maybe the other thing could be, and that could help sort things out. And you know, maybe, for example, rather if you were doing a Zoom show just for social weddings and that type of thing, well, maybe there's still companies that are existing who still have conferences, and they still need to engage with people on the air and through Zoom and that type of thing, and they still need entertainment in the breakout areas. So there's still, if you were perhaps a little bit resourceful, or some research, or you had some inside knowledge, you could perhaps find a direction that was a little bit unique, and one thing leads to another. You know, maybe there are medical corporations who need 10 minutes of this or something, or maybe you're talking about a motivational speaker, or how there's so many different areas that try not to be focused, try to be open. So we all have the same influences of advertising and music and all sorts of things. So let's not be in a magic world. Let's be in an open world and just listen and hear. And actually, I think for every person that's struggling, I reckon there's a few that have actually been doing better and finding that they're not needed to travel as much, and their lives might be easier because they will soon not need to travel the world, be away from their family as much in order to do certain things, and can be a balance of one or the other, or making some choices. So it depends where you are. It's too general for me just to say that, but I can assure you there's always things that will go wrong and can go wrong and whatever, and you've got to try and be one step ahead and try and think it through, and more importantly, think logically, and take the emotion out of the situation and think what's the best way of dealing with it. I always think, you know, for example, sometimes you've heard the expression, you can't see the wood for the trees, and, you know, imagine yourself in a you know, in a forest clump full of trees, and you just, you know, branches everywhere, all problems. But actually, if you're in a hot air balloon, it might just be a small clump of trees in a very open meadow. And that's normally what life's about if you think it through in that way, you know. Another simile is that, you know, people are too busy to do things. There's this thing about, you know, I think it was my dad who might have told me this, I'm not sure, but it was like, imagine there's a in the old days, a highwayman, and a big tree has come across the road there, and so, you know, they can't go any further. So you get a guy there, he's trying to saw this tree trunk, and it's taking him for hours. He's sweating profusely, he's trying to go bit by bit, and then someone comes along, they'll say, why don't you sharpen your saw? You'll do it quicker. So, oh, I haven't got time for that, you know. Well, if you sharpened your saw, you throw it quickly and the problem goes away. And I think you've got to be thinking very logically and coherently and positively, and a lot of things take care of themselves.
I totally agree. I've got a friend who's a motivational speaker, and he always says, what does this make possible? So there's a global pandemic, you can't go and perform. What does this make possible? What can you now do that you didn't have the time to do beforehand? Completely, totally agree with you. Marvin, before we wrap this whole thing up, let me ask you a question that I ask everybody who I interview on this channel, and it's especially pertinent to you, which is, What's next? Is there anything left on your bucket list? I mean, let's be clear, your legacy in this industry is set. You know, if you decided to sell Marvin's Magic and just retire, which I know you're not going to do, but if you decided to do that, people are going to be talking about you for forever. I mean, you've literally, like I said at the beginning, you've created an industry out of that didn't exist before, and you are the leading brand worldwide in what you do. I mean, you've gone all over the globe. Is there anything left that you want to achieve that you haven't done yet?
Of course, of course. I never think of it like that. I think any success that we, and thank you for pointing it out, but any success that we have had is, to me, just a byproduct of all the enthusiasm, hard work, and passion to do. To me, it's great fun. For the people I work with, we are a very motivated crew of people. We enjoy doing what we're doing. We've done, you know, we're doing some great work at the moment, and you say, you know, if I sold this, that, the other. Well, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be in a position where things are fine, and I don't have to do something for the sake of doing it. I enjoy doing it. I would continue to do it. What would you do if you didn't do it? You know, I really. It's great. We're lucky. Magic is a great fun industry. It's a happiness business compared to many other things. I don't want to say other things, but it is. We make people smile. We're happy. It's a positive thing. It's a skill. It's a hobby. It's a profession. It's whatever you want it to be, and it's a feel good thing. And I enjoy doing that. And I think you know, I've enjoyed during this time having a bit more time. I've got myself nice and fit. Doing, you know, a lot of exercise and eating well, and I feel great, and I've always enjoyed that, and there's so many things I'd still want to do and continue to do, but I do think the best years are ahead of us still, and hopefully I have got a legacy of some great things, and a team of people who will continue to do that, and I hope I'm as part of it for as long as I can be. You know.
That's fantastic. That is absolutely amazing. Marvin, it's been a real pleasure having you on the channel. I want to say thank you so much for coming on. You are such a busy man, and to find time to come on here and speak to the channel and all the magicians that watch. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure, Craig. Thank you for having me.
And before you go, where can people find you in terms of? I just want to put at the bottom of the screen Facebook and Instagram, because you know, what I talked about at the very beginning, the Marvin's Magic Live that you did with Michael. It's amazing. Yeah, I watched the whole thing and I thought it was fantastic, and I think any magician should watch it. That's on your Facebook page, right? So
yes, that's on YouTube. I think would be the best thing if you put Marvin's Magic Live. Now you said, I think that particular one was from memory December the 13th, and that was a special one. So that's worth watching. That was yeah, the Marvin's Magic Live, December 13th. That one's on there, so I could get you the link for that. We'll put that one up, and if people want to contact us for anything, I'll put up our head office here, and via that will get to me. So if anybody's got any questions, or if they want to come and become a demonstrator, or get some advice, or contact me directly, that's fine. I'm on Twitter. You can or Facebook. I don't do Facebook that much, but you can always find me. I'll send you a bunch of links. Okay.
That's amazing. Marvin, one more time, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. See you again next week. Bye, everyone.